That's what we do at Kid Blast. And everyone has to say it. I was saying earlier in first service that I love our church so much, and that when you come here, I don't know that you all feel this yet, but if you don't, maybe you will, that you're walking into a friend's living room, that you're not getting preached at, but you're getting talked to and invited into a conversation. And I wish that we had big, comfy couches for us all to sit in, and that I could have a big, comfy chair to sit in right now as well. But I consider it a living room that we get to just be together in. So thank you for joining us this morning. I want to start by telling you that the church has invested in and is free for you what's called Right Now Media. And we don't talk about it every week, but it's hanging in the men's and women's bathroom, and it's hanging in the halls, and it's on our social media, and it's on your Church Center app, and it's at the bottom of the sermon verses today if you follow along. So it's kind of out there for you, but it has thousands of Bible studies on it. And I want to encourage you today, if you did not sign up for your free account, that you do so today. And the message that God laid upon my heart, I just did a quick scan on Right Now Media to see how many studies are out there about it, and literally 20 came up immediately. So you can find something to continue your week in diving into the Word. And you can find other things on there too. We use it in small groups and youth group, and I use it personally as a developmental tool and a way to continue to stay in the Word. And so I just want to encourage you. I'll be done promoting it now, but I want to encourage you to use it with yourself, with your family, with your friends, because it is a powerful tool. So this morning, I haven't introduced myself. I'm Pastor Angel, if you don't know that. But this morning, we're going to talk about trusting in the Lord. And it's such a easy thing, right? Trust in the Lord, He's got your back. Trust in the Lord, He is good. And it's an easy thing to say, but sometimes it's kind of hard to do, isn't it? But there are things that we trust in all the time that we don't even think about. Did you have an electrician come into your home last night and test all the outlets to make sure that your alarm clock was plugged into an outlet that worked, that your alarm would go off? Or did you just trust that the electricity will work and that your alarm would go off and that you would get up on time and that you would come to church? Or did you call the mechanic to come and check out your car so this morning when you got up and you turned the ignition that it would start? No, you trusted that your car would start, right? Or did you call the plumber and ask them to come in and make sure that your hot water was going to work and that all the faucets were going to work and that when you got up this morning you could take a nice hot shower before you came in? Maybe that didn't work for you and you didn't shower today, but that's okay. We're family. You can stay here. Probably not, right? You just trusted that it was going to work. Recently I went on a trip and I trusted blindly that the pilot, the co-pilot, the air traffic controllers, the airline itself did its vetting, and it took care of making sure the people were trained properly, and flew across the country and back blindly. Didn't even know the pilot's name. I just trusted him. He didn't even write me a love letter. He didn't say, "Dear Angel, I love you so much that I'm going to," Jesus wrote us some love letters, didn't He? God wrote us some love letters to trust Him. That airline pilot did not do that. He did tell me to wear my seatbelt, though, so I was thankful for that. I go to restaurants, and I went to a restaurant a couple years ago and trusted the food that they were going to serve me, and I got a very violent case of food poisoning that triggered, in my opinion, a series of events in my life that were harmful to me, that I ended up having to have surgery, that it triggered my thyroid and all these things that happen over the years. And so I should never go back to that restaurant. But within months, I decided that it was a fluke and that they weren't trying to poison me, and I was going to trust them again. We as Christians are called to trust the Lord, who has never ever poisoned us, lied to us, and yet often we will toss Him aside if He doesn't work in the ways that we want, in the timing that we want, in the outcome that we want. But we are called as followers of Jesus to trust Him. In Proverbs 3:5-6, it says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Do not depend on your own understanding. Seek his will in all you do, and he will show you which path to take. It doesn't say trust him when you die, that you're going to spend eternity with him. It says trust in the Lord with all your heart. That means right now, sitting here, right this second, he wants you to trust him. When you leave this place, he wants you to trust him. This week, he wants you to trust him with all your heart. Do you have areas in your life that you are not fully trusting in the Lord to handle? I'll be very transparent with you. There are moments in my life that I forget to hand over to him, that I decide that I know best and I know how to handle it, and I am way quicker and sometimes way wiser, and that I can get things done fast, right? I'm a pretty fast person in the most things that I do. And so if I can make a decision, I'm just going to do it. I'm not going to pray about it. But he tells us that we are supposed to trust him. And it says, do not depend on your own understanding. And the truth is, some of you might not like to hear this, you lack understanding in a lot of areas of your life. We lack understanding with the most important people in our life. The people that we are closest to, we often lack understanding about what they're going through or what they mean when they say something. Have you had a conversation with someone and you say something and they're like, well, you know what? And you're like, what did you just hear? That's not what I was trying to say. I just had a conversation like that yesterday, and I was like, whoa, what did you hear? Because it's not what I was saying. We lack understanding all the time. Throughout the Bible, the examples of trusting in God and then trusting in our own wisdom and our own knowledge, like that's the Old Testament, right? We love him. We want to do it on our own. We love him. We need help. Help us, rescue us. I think I know better now. Now I've got it together. It's over and over again. It's like on repeat. And it's kind of beautiful, right? That God keeps coming back for his people. And just so you know, if you didn't know this, you are his people. You're adopted into the family, so he's going to keep coming back for you. But he does that over and over in the Old Testament. And as I was thinking about this verse in Proverbs, trust in the Lord with all your heart, I was like, you know, Lord, what story in the Bible, what example is there? And he kept bringing Daniel to mind. Daniel and the lion's den. And I was like, all right, that's what I'm going to talk about, because that's not what I was going to talk about. But I'll talk about it. I'll trust you because you know better than I do. I just read that. In my Bible, it gives you a purpose for each book, and it said this about Daniel. It was written to give historical account of the faithful Jews who lived in captivity and how God is in control of heaven and earth, directing the forces of nature, the destiny of nations, and the care of his people. So in chapter 6, I just want to give you some little nuggets to have as I talk about this, because this is what makes me think and like puts things into perspective, so I hope it does it for you as well. So Pastor Steven, in his week 2 of Nonpartisan Faith, talked about Daniel and his friends, right, in the fiery furnace, the friends that went in the furnace. Well, these people of Judah, when they were called out, they asked for like young people that were teachable and smart and good looking. Well, Daniel was one of them when he was drafted. He was around 15 years old when he was drafted, okay? Daniel ended up serving under 4 kings. Chapter 6, he's under the 3rd king, King Darius. King Darius, according to Google, is 28 years old when he comes into reign. Daniel, in chapter 6, is 80 years old. He's seen some stuff. He knows some stuff. He knows how the government works. He knows his job, and he knows kings, right? He's been made an administrator. There's 3 administrators over high officers that oversaw 120 provinces. So he's pretty important. And King Darius loves Daniel, loves him. He has decided that he is going to put him over his entire empire. That's a big deal. And these other administrators and high officers are peeved. They're mad. They're going to try to figure out a way to get him out. They don't want him to be over all the empire. So their pride's getting in the way. They're pretty jealous. So they start looking, and they want to find fault in Daniel, and they start looking at how he was handling government affairs. But because he was faithful, responsible, and trustworthy, they couldn't find anything. So they saw that their only chance at getting him into some trouble was by finding grounds for accusing Daniel would be in connection with the rules of his religion, of his faith. Okay, so I've set the scene. So Daniel 6 through 23, we're going to read through that. So the administrators and the high officers went to the king and said, "Long live King Darius. We are all in agreement, we administrators, high officials, high officers, advisors, and governors, that the king should make a law that will be strictly enforced. Give orders that for the next 30 days, any person who prays to anyone, divine or human, except to you, your majesty, will be thrown into the den of lions. And now, your majesty, issue and sign this law so it cannot be changed. An official law of the Medes and Persians that cannot be revoked." So King Darius signed the law. But when Daniel learned that the law had been signed, he went home and knelt down as usual in his upstairs room with its windows open towards Jerusalem, and he prayed 3 times a day, just as he had always done, giving thanks to his God. Then the officials went together to Daniel's house and found him praying and asking for God's help. So they went straight to the king and reminded him about his law. "Did you not sign a law that for the next 30 days, any person who prays to anyone, divine or human, except for to you, your majesty, will be thrown into the den of lions?" "Yes," the king replied. "The decision stands. It is official law of the Medes and Persians that cannot be revoked." Then they told the king, "That man Daniel, one of the captives from Judah, is ignoring you and your law. He still prays to his God 3 times a day." Hearing this, the king was deeply troubled, and he tried to think of a way to save Daniel. He spent the rest of the day looking for a way to get Daniel out of this predicament. In the evening, the men went together to the king and said, "Your Majesty, you know that according to the law of the Medes and the Persians, no law that the king signs can be changed." So at last, the king gave orders for Daniel to be arrested and thrown into the den of lions. The king said to him, "May your God, whom you serve so faithfully, rescue you." A stone was brought and placed over the mouth of the den. The king sealed the stone with his own royal seal and the seals of his nobles, so that no one could rescue Daniel. Then the king returned to his palace and spent the night fasting. He refused his usual entertainment and couldn't sleep at all that night. Very early the next morning, the king got up and hurried out to the lion's den. When he got there, he called out in anguish, "Daniel, servant of the living God, was your God, whom you serve so faithfully, able to rescue you from the lions?" Can you imagine the anticipation? Daniel answered, "Long live the king. My God sent his angel to shut the lions' mouths, so that they would not hurt me. For I have been found innocent in his sight, and I have not wronged you, your majesty." And the king was overjoyed and ordered that Daniel be lifted from the den. Not a scratch was found on him, for he had trusted in his God. It's not just a cute story. The Bible is truth. Daniel was not touched. He was not harmed. Why? First of all, he was consistent. He wasn't just consistent with his work, but he was consistent with his faith and his relationship with God in pursuing that relationship. When he found out that this decree had been signed, he didn't run away like I would probably run away if lions were going to eat me, right? That would be awful, and I'm pretty afraid of lions eating me, as you should be. he didn't do that. He did what he usually did. His integrity and what he did stood ground. And he went and he prayed, as usual. He didn't change his beliefs or his intentionality to have a relationship with the living God. And we can't say he wasn't worried or didn't have any anxiety, because it says that when the high officials went, when the administrators went, what did they do? They found him asking God for help. Doesn't he call us and ask us to ask him for help? This relationship with him, that he wants us to ask him for help. Because we're Christians doesn't mean that we don't need his help anymore. We actually need it way more. And there he was, asking for help. He trusted that God would be God, and that the outcome of this real and present danger of hungry lions was trusted into the Lord's hands. That is a danger I have never personally, in real life, dealt with. But I want, and I look at Daniel's life of 15 to 80 years old, and all that time being drafted, serving in a place that they weren't like him. But he stayed consistent. He held so true to God at 15 years old. That's amazing. The trust that Daniel had in God didn't just affect his own life. So some other things happened in there. And again, I encourage you to go read Daniel 6. But I'm jumping ahead a little bit. And I want to ask you, if being a Christian, being a Christ follower, have you ever experienced the rubbing of shoulders, the it's catching, right? I saw that in you, and now I want it. So in verses 26 through and 27, it says this: the king is saying these things. The king who just ordered a decree that no one could pray or worship any person or divine being but him, says this: I decree that everyone throughout my kingdom should tremble with fear before the God of Daniel. For he is the living God, and he will endure forever. His kingdom will never be destroyed, and his rule will never end. He rescues and saves his people. He performs miraculous signs and wonders in the heavens and on earth, and he has rescued Daniel from the power of the lions. Has someone in your life that you have witnessed and went, I want that? I observe people all the time, and I witness amazing things that God is doing in their life all the time. I'm looking for it. I'm not just like watching you, but when I'm in relationship with you, I'm waiting for the testimony. I know certain things because I'm in relationship with you, and I am waiting to see what God is about to do. And see it, and then it encourages me, and it rubs off on me like, their faith is awesome. I love that. I want that. I want a piece of that. I want a piece of that. And I pray that my faith does the same thing for people that I'm around. Just like it did for King Darius with David, or Daniel. Sorry, I keep doing that. So here's a reminder that just because things don't look like we think they should, doesn't mean that God isn't working and that we shouldn't trust him. In my personal life, I'll be transparent. There are things, there's my marriage. My husband works away a lot, so I have a marriage over here, and I have 2 sons over here, and these are like little tornadoes. I don't know if it's like that for you, but like in my life, I can look at them and like see little tornadoes all around me. And then there's work. 7. And then there's vehicles and finances and a house that needs work that I can't do, and car things that no one should have to deal with, and like all these little mini things, and my relationship with God that I want it to be deeper, and church, and the worries and anxieties I have for my friends and the loved ones that I have, and the prayer, like all of these little mini tornadoes that are in my life, that when I focus on them When I get down and I'm like, okay, I have to really deal with this right now, I get overwhelmed because I lean in on my trusting of myself and the understanding I have about things, and I kind of get away from God in those moments. And it's so easy to do, isn't it? When you're in the middle of a crisis or you're in the middle of something that's super hard, to go, wait a minute, I need to pray. I need to pray about this. I need to put this in God's hands, and I need to wait. Waiting is awful. We can all admit that. If you say it's not, I need your secret. So we all have different ways to do something, but my way that God has gifted me with the desire to do is, we all walk around, most of us, that when we can walk, and sometimes I can't because I have a bum knee, but he's given me the love of hiking, of just getting out in nature. And I have found that when I disconnect from everything else and I just focus on him, or it's going to sound stupid, like I was somewhere over the weekend and there's this big rock and I stopped and I touched the rock, and then I felt silly, like if someone saw me just touching this rock, how silly would I be? But I was like, I just want to touch this rock for a minute. Like, it's just a huge rock. How long has it been here? This is super cool, right? Sorry, I got off topic. Anyhow, I have found this love that when I get disconnected, I can somehow just reset, refresh, take deep breaths in nature, just kind of be refreshed with the Lord. And so I love it. And I love hiking with my husband. We used to do it when he was around all the time. We'd go on our property and hike. And just a couple weekends ago, I got to go up to New York. Alex, can you show that photo, that slide? Thank you. I got to go up and we did this amazing hike, and it was so good. And we were going, and there was this beautiful outlook. And there was a time when we were hiking, and I stopped talking. And he stopped, and he turned around, and he was like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "I'm just praying." And he was like, "Oh, are you okay?" And I was like, "Honestly, I was just thanking God for you." That's what I was doing. And he was like, "Oh, okay." And, we kept going. And it was just nice, right? It was just a moment that maybe it didn't affect him, but it affected me. And I love to hike with my friends. When they say yes, they want to go on a hike, I'm all in. I love it. My girlfriend and I just went out to Colorado and hiked Manitou Incline, and then another 6 miles. And it's so good to hike with someone else because it's an encouragement, right? I heard, "You can do it. It's really hard, but you can go." And "You can do it too." That's how we talk, like this. But it's encouraging and it's uplifting, and you're sharing and you're unloading and you're lifting up and you're praying and you're loving, and there's quiet times and all those things. And so that's a real joy when you get to hike with a friend or someone else that you get to invest in, right? But somewhere in all of that, I have found that I love hiking alone, solo hikes. And it's kind of weird because I am really a person that's full of anxiety when I have to do anything by myself, especially for the first time. So if I go to somewhere, if you go with me the first time, I'm golden for the rest of the time and go by myself. But if I have to go the first time by myself, I'm very full of anxiety. And so, but I have found that these moments that I'm by myself with the Lord, I am super refreshed. When Moses came down from the mountain and he was glowing, I'm not saying I was glowing, but I feel glowy from it. And so over the weekend on Friday, I found this trail. It was called Minister Creek Trail. I thought it was appropriate for me to go on. And I called my friend and I was like, "Hey, I'm going to go on this trail on Friday. Do you want to go?" And she was like, "Yep, I'm all in." And I was like, "Awesome. It's going to be kind of hard. It's rated a hard trail on my all trails." And she was like, "Okay, no problem." And so Thursday comes, and she calls me, and she says, "You know what? I have decided I don't feel good about this. I shouldn't go. I'm not going to go. And I'm sorry." And I was like, "No problem. I'm totally going alone. Never did it before, but I am good. You don't feel bad. I'm going to go." And she was like, "Oh, I just have a bad feeling, and I have a bad feeling I don't know that you should go either." And I was like, "Oh, I'm totally going. I'm fine." And I hung up the phone, and I was like, "I got to get my bag ready. I know it's just 7 miles, but I'm going somewhere I haven't been. It's an hour and a half away. There's not supposed to be any cell service. I need to have some stuff." So I had a Band-Aid a Band-Aid, because that's how I roll. I don't fall down. I don't get hurt. A sandwich, some water, some stuff. But when she said, I have a bad feeling, I was like, should I have a bad feeling? I don't, but I have this little knife. I have a knife. I'm going to put it in my bag. I have a knife, you guys. The blade's this big. It's going to do something. Steven, it's going to do something. He laughed at me when I told him how big my knife was. And then as I was packing my bag, I started having these thoughts of anxiety, these thoughts that were saying, should you go on this hike? Aren't you afraid that there'll be someone out there that you're in the middle of nowhere? What if you fall down? What if you get hurt? What if you get lost? What if there's a lion? I've been studying, okay? I have a knife. That's all I'm saying. So I'm like, I'm good. I'm going. So I get there, and I'm a little nervous because I'm having this anxiety, but I remember I can do hard things, right? I went to Spain this year by myself. I can hike an hour and a half from my house. So I go, and I park, and there's no service, and there's no one there. Good, right? I don't want anyone on this trail with me. That's weird. Immediately get out of the car. I take a picture of where I was going. Wrong slide, Alex. Get like the picture of the place and all the things. And I'm like, this is good. It says the trail is right across the street. So I go, and I'm like, I have my poles, because I do hike with poles. And oh my goodness, you guys, I started wrong immediately, totally lost, off trail. My All Trails app says, are you off the trail? I don't know. And so I backtracked and I found the trail. It's real little, it's hard to find. And I get on it, and I'm going, and you guys, I got lost 2 times. 2 more times. And I was like, dang it. Every time I hike alone, I do get lost. But I had my All Trails app, so it's really helpful, and I was like, oh, I got to go back, and I found my way. I haven't fallen down since Jack was 5 at the ice skating rink. When I fell there, the ice skating lifeguard came out and said, ma'am, do you need help up? And I had to say yes. And he called me ma'am. And I had deemed at that moment I was never falling again. Because first, obviously, I'm going to be called ma'am. I'm way too old to fall. And I hurt my knee. I fell twice. And the first time I fell, I jumped right up and I looked around. Did anyone see me? No one saw me. No one was out there. Second time I fell, I did this amazing split thing going down a hill. I was pretty impressed with myself, but I just laughed and got back up. It was all good. I decided I was hungry. You see those cracks in that rock? These rocks were huge, you guys. Rocks everywhere, bigger than Builder's rocks. There were cracks and crevices, places where mountain cats would live. In my head, I'm having conversations with the Lord. But I'm like, if there's a mountain cat, that's where it's going to be. But at this moment, I decided I'm hungry. So I get out my little cashews out of this side, because my knife is in this side. My cashews are over here. And I pour them into my hand, and I put them back. And something, I don't know if it's your body that knows it's about to receive food, or there was a mountain cat. But there was growling that happened. And it was very loud. And I popped them in, and I took off. And I was like, oh my gosh, I almost got eaten by a mountain cat. Because it was it was it was loud. Scared me to death. Now, I had myself already psyched out for this mountain cat, right? Because of Daniel and the lions. But I want to tell you that through all of those things, those ridiculousnesses that happen in my life when I hike alone, I am truly talking to God the whole time. When I fell, I immediately praised him for not being hurt. When I got lost, I immediately praised him that he was with me and that I was never really lost. And when he didn't allow that cat to eat me, I praised him for making my stomach equally loud as a mountain cat. I praised him and I thanked him and I trusted that he was with me. And I had a wonderful time. And while I was there, the Minister Rock is a rock that has a beautiful outlook. And that's the whole purpose of kind of going. It's 5 miles in, and you get on this rock, and now, Alex, can you show that picture? There we go. That's the overlook. Isn't it gorgeous? God and his handiwork and the vastness and the beauty and the trees and the mountains and how he has created it is amazing. And I said this in first service, and I'll do it again, and you can laugh at me if you want to, but I have like little Titanic moments when I get to an overlook, and I kind of drop my poles and I do this, and I say, thank you, Lord. Thank you for all that you have done. And as silly as that is, it's truly praise. I am praising him, and I feel him, and I love it, and it is a wonderful moment between me and him, and my adoration and love, and his adoration and love for me. And so I get to this rock, and I take off my bag, and I drop my poles, and I turn around, and fog. That is all I saw. There was no view. Fog. And that's kind of disappointing, right? And I started having some wow moments in my head, like, oh, man, I came the whole way here. This is my view, fog. And then I quickly was reminded that God is there. Just because I can't see the beautiful view, I can't see the vastness, doesn't mean it's not there. Just because I can't see his handiwork doesn't mean it's not there. Just because I can't see what he's doing out there doesn't mean he's not working. That I still get to trust him. I still can lean on his understanding of why when I went that day, I got to see fog instead of the view that I wanted. And I think truly it was just to remind me and humble me that he's always at work. He's interwoven in all of my life. Even when I can't see him, I need to trust him. Even when you don't see him and he's not doing what you want when you want it and how you want it done, doesn't mean that he's not doing a good thing. Oh, I skipped right ahead. So I was also reminded there in the fog of nothingness that I got to see a lot of beautiful things that day. I got to see his handiwork. I got to see these huge rocks. I got to see these caverns. I got to do hard things. But one of the things that the whole hike that my eye was drawn to, and these are just 4 pictures. There were so many of these, that a rock covered in moss, or sometimes not, and a tree would be on top of it, growing, with its roots going down. Like it had to start up here, right? Its roots had to grow down. That is not on my understanding of tree planting. Tree planting says it needs to be in the soil. That doesn't work in my world. And I kept seeing it over and over and over and over. And I was like, Steven has taught me, Pastor Steven is wise. You should listen to him. He has taught me to take pictures of things. I usually wouldn't take pictures. My one trip I took of 10 days, I think I had maybe 20 photos, and he was like, Angel, you've got to start taking pictures. So I do. I try to stop and I'll take a picture of this or I take a picture of that. I kept being drawn to this. So these are just 4 pictures of many that these trees were doing something they shouldn't be doing. And I was like, God, what are you teaching me, right? When something's on repeat, you're like, are you trying to tell me something? Am I supposed to learn something from this? And he was like, yeah, you're supposed to trust me. And I don't know, I can't tell you when a verse comes to my head, like the book, the chapter, the verse. That's not how my mind works. But I can tell you a verse or a summary of a verse. And so I was like, yeah, my ways are not your ways. You're way wiser than me, aren't you? Oh, yeah, you do the impossible. You do the impossible. I can't do the impossible, but you do the impossible. And so when I got back to the office, I looked up the verses so I could share them with you. So Genesis 18:14 says, is there anything too hard for the Lord? Matthew 19:26, Jesus looked at them intently, said, humanly speaking, it is impossible, but with God, everything is possible. And in Luke 1:37, he replied, what is impossible for people is possible for God. So when we are trying to understand things and work it out and trust in ourselves, remember, we need to trust in him. He's the impossible God, the one that can do anything. These trees, these verses, I was reminded of the seemingly impossible. My circumstances, my tornadoes, just seem impossible some days. And I go, how? How am I supposed to fix this? How am I supposed to do this? How am I supposed to restore relationships? How am I supposed to pray for people that don't really like me? How am I supposed to reach people that think I'm a fool? How am I supposed to build this relationship with you, Lord? And he says, hello, trust me. Our seemingly impossible mindset or our limitations are just that. They're ours. They're our limitations. They're not his. We need to trust him and let God be God and do mighty and great things and beautiful things, more than we can ever imagine. And I wrote some prayers down that we've heard in recent times from people and from myself. One was, well, this one wasn't from me. Stephen will have my head. It's, let me keep my job. What if God is saying, I have the best job for you? Why are you holding on to something that's not yours? Hand it over to me and let me show you what I can do. Help me get my head above water. What if we just want our finances to keep us above water? And he says, I can bless you so much more. And it's not about money. And you're putting a limit, a ceiling to him in your prayers. And he's like, I can bust through that and give you something so much greater. What if we say, give me this person, or this person as a spouse, or this person as a friend, and he says, wait to see who I have for you. They're amazing, so much better, so much more than this. Or what if we say, just let us stop fighting. Let my husband and I not fight. And he says, I'll do even better. You're going to love each other like I love you. What if it's that? What if it's about complete restoration? And it's not about just getting rid of this situation or improving that situation. What if we're hampering and we're not giving him the space to do what God can do and trusting him with all of ourselves and those that we love? What about Daniel when he said, Lord, help me? It doesn't say this, but what if it said, Lord, help me, kill those lions? Lord, help me, put me in another den that doesn't have any lions. Let them make a mistake. Lord, put me in a den that has a ladder that they can't climb. That'll show them. But what did God do? He sent an angel to shut the mouths of those lions. He let Daniel see an angel. That is so much greater and better than just killing them. It's so much greater and better than just putting them in a different one. And it didn't just strengthen Daniel. What did it do? The king. It was rubbed off on the king, and he said, that is the living God. You will tremble before him. That's what he wants us to do, to trust him. Ask for help, but trust him in that. He will help you. And your answer to prayer is going to be so much better if you stop trying to fix it on your own. God is weaved into every decision I make, and he's working in my life all the time. I see it everywhere all the time. There are so many blessings in my life that if I concentrate on these little tornadoes, I will miss every blessing. One blessing is laughter. I laugh till I cry almost every day. I don't cry every day, but I laugh till I cry every day. Every day. The staff here at this church, you some of you. I don't laugh at you, but I definitely laugh with you till I cry. There are things that crack me up, and laughing is just life-giving to me, and I love it. I love the children of our church. They bring me so much joy, my heart could burst. I had a story of a friend, which I'm not going to tell right now. I'm going to let that play out and let God do what God's going to do. But she let me into a little piece of a prayer that she's been praying for her granddaughter, and we stood in the lobby like, our hearts could literally burst together, that I get to be even a second involved, that I was a prayer partner with you, that we prayed for this moment. Like, that is awesome. That is a blessing in my life. That rubs off on you, right? It gets you fired up for the Lord. I have a blessing of a child, of two children. One, which, by the way, I need to clarify, Jack did not get married at 18. It was my son Kyle in his 30s that got married. I was told I misled a bunch of people, and they thought Jack got married. And then I had someone say, oh, Jack got married. I was like, oh, no, he didn't get married. It was my other son. So I just want to tell you that now. I hope that everyone can tell everyone that if you've been concerned. Anyhow, so my son Jack and my husband and my son's girlfriend were on a trip in June, and they came upon an accident or a slowdown or whatever, and a semi-truck came and hit my husband's truck and totaled it. And blessing, they all walked away from it. It caused some financial things, right? I mean, our truck is totaled. We had to go get another truck. There were some expenses involved. But the cop said, this is a great accident. And they were like, a great accident? He was like, most people don't get hit by semi-trucks and walk away. This is a good accident. No one died. My husband suffers now from migraines and back pain every single day, which he never had. That sucks for him. And so I said to him this weekend, babe, can you tell me a way that God has been working in your life through that accident? And he went, no. And I was like, dang it, I was going to use it as a sermon illustration. And he said, I think that accident affected you way more than it affected me. And I said, how do you mean? And he said, I walked away, so it was just done. You saw something else. And I said, you know what I did? And I started praying about it. And you guys, I think I'm King Darius. I think that God used that for me. And that kind of annoys me a little bit, that I had to be having my family hit with a Mack truck, and like 3 people could have been removed from my life immediately. But man alive, when a semi-truck hits your family, your eyes open. And I thought, you know, I trust you, Lord, but have I really been trusting you with them? And have I been loving them the way I should love them? And so when that happened, I was like, you know what? I need to pray more intently for my family. I need to love and keep peace in ways that you kind of just fall stagnant. You kind of fall flat when things get ordinary and repetitious. And, the integrity and things like that are still there, but like things just fall flat. You just stop talking. You just go about your day. All those things that happen. And I was like, you know what, hon, I love you. I love you with all my heart. I love you. And he's like, calm down. And but God used that for me to remind me that he's in control, that he's still good even in bad situations, and that I can be transformed by other situations, that I can trust him in handing them over to him every single day. That is hard to do, friends. But we're called to trust him. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Do not depend on your own understanding. My understanding is you get thrown into a den of lions, you get eaten. You get hit by a semi-truck, you die. But my understanding is also when you give your life to Christ, you are saved. And when you give your life to Christ and you hand it all over to him, you can trust him with all of it. So I'm learning, and I hope that you're learning, that you're not so proud that you say, I have it all figured out. that you're learning to lean on his understanding and to trust him with all of your heart. Let us pray. Lord, thank you for this day. I thank you for who you are. Today, Lord, right now, we trust you. I ask that you empower us. You send the Holy Spirit to walk with us and remind us to trust you as we get in the car and we drive away and we get to where we're going. And tomorrow that we trust you and we lean on your understanding. And in our prayers, Lord, that we don't limit you, that we ask for your will in our life. And it is always bigger and better than ours. I thank you for empowering us. I thank you for loving us. I thank you for this day. In your son's name, amen. Thank you again for joining us today. And I know you don't want to hear it right now, but I'm empowering you to do chairs.